Thank you. My wife always says, smile, Walter. You look too serious. Smile. So welcome, everybody. Welcome. Special thank you to Marine Canada Speaker for getting up at 5:30 this morning to come and listen to me speak about the Broward economy. Let's give Marine a big hand. Marine does not get up for anybody. She's retired, and so we're honored that she's here today. Thank you very much, Marine. You know, like Dennis mentioned, about 5 years ago, the Broward, this organization said, "Hey, listen, we have a great speaker every year. Let's screw it up and have Walter come and give a local piece." And so we've been doing that, and I think it really helps. I think it helps sort of tie us together, what we do here as a local economy and what's going on externally in the broader economy and how it impacts us. And listen, Broward County is amazing. We are an absolute economic beast. We stand on our own, but we are not without some vulnerability to what goes on in the greater economy. And so, you know, I think it's good that we do this piece as well. And like Dennis mentioned, I'd love to thank the committee. It's, you know, anybody that's put on an event like this knows how much work it takes. They've done a fantastic job. Our staff is second to none. And, you know, Media Lab did that great video, and Media Lab, the Floyd brothers, did this event today. So if you need a video, you need anything done like that for your business, Media Lab is a fantastic option. All right, listen, before we get started, I don't want you to be scared about these small numbers on this screen. You have my guarantee, and we do this every year, and those of you that come here know that. No small graphs, no small numbers, just big pictures, just big, you know, letters and numbers. We're gonna take it easy on you. It's early, you know, and we don't want to be too tough on you. So, and on that note, I want to thank my wife, Lisa, my business partner, an all-around fantastic person. You know, she does the pictures, and puts this deck together, and so I noticed that over the years, she puts pictures in that mean something or that have some meaning to her, that it maybe foreshadow what the economic forecast is going to be. You look at this first slide, and there's some sun, some dark clouds, some light clouds, a little bit of a mixed bag. So I think Lisa was foreshadowing here, and I think as we make our way through the presentation, you look at some of these slides, you'll start to see Lisa's fingerprints in her photo selection. Okay, so anyway, this is the Florida scorecard. I mention this every year. This is a good, repeatable source of economic metrics that the average business can look at and sort of say how we're doing. This is the Florida scorecard. There are scorecards for every county. You know, we can thank Wayne Huizenga, our very own Wayne Huizenga, who was at a Florida Chamber of Commerce event many years ago, was so moved by the speech that he cut a $1 million check and sent it to the Florida Chamber of Commerce and basically started this. And we should also mention that our very own Charlie Calkins, top lawyer at Fisher Phillips, an HR firm, one of the best in the country, was the chamber president for Florida last year. So let's give him a big hand. I know Charlie's here. Thank you for your service, Charlie. We're gonna, you know, this is a Broward County economic forecast, but you know, you want to start with the state. Florida is on fire. I mean, we really are doing a great job. We're the 14th largest economy in the world. Yes. And a tremendous leadership. And we are the 14th largest economy in the world. We up until this year led the nation in population growth, first time since 1957. We lead the nation in wealth and migration. And so, you know, Florida's just doing a fantastic job in general. For a more localized scorecard, CareerSourceBroward.com is a great place to go. You know, this is their dashboard, and they're doing a great job, you know, really tackling what is a major issue in our local economy and really a threat to our long-term economic sustainability, and that's labor force. Where are we going to find labor to service our growing, burgeoning economy? So we want to start by just sort of framing Broward County. What are we? Who are we? How big are we? You know, how do we sort of fit in the broader economy? This is our county commission. You know, in the middle is Mayor Nan Rich in the red, and to her immediate right, of course, is Lamar Fisher, who's here with us today. Two fantastic public service representatives. And in my opinion, the county commission is doing a very good job. You know, if you know, they're thoughtful, they will listen to you if you provide them with, you know, educational points about your issue, and they're doing a very good job. Broward County, if we were a state, we would be the 35th largest state in the country by GDP and by population. We would be bigger than Nebraska. I mean, we really are a powerful local economy when you think about that. You know, we're part of the South Florida MSA, which is, of course, Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade County, and together collectively, we have a GDP of $484 billion. And, you know, that puts us 12th in the country, about on par with Philly or DC or Atlanta. You know, from a population standpoint, we're 9th in the country. So we really are an economic beast, and we do a good job. We have a AAA credit rating, one of only 2 in the state, which really helps us when we bond and we leverage our dependable resources. So Broward County is really an economic beast. So as we're going to cover the major, economic indicators: employment. We're going to touch on, population. We're going to touch on, small business confidence, and also consumer spending. Consumer spending is a big part of our local economy. Then we're going to just run through the industry, housing, or as I like to call it, housing affordability, real estate, tourism, and then of course we're going to touch on our economic engines. And I have a new entry to the economic engines this year. And so I'm proud to sort of roll that out. And that's downtown Fort Lauderdale. And of course, we have Greg Chiavari here, the city manager of Fort Lauderdale, and Jenny Motorhone, who's the CEO and chairman of the Downtown Development Authority. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Population. I said a couple of years ago, population usually, historically, has always been the most boring slide in any economic deck. But for Florida right now, it's actually a very exciting slide. I mean, our population growth is fantastic. We expect to have 257,000 more people in Broward County by 2030. You think about that. I mean, the city of Fort Lauderdale is about 190,000 people. So we're going to have the city of Fort Lauderdale 1.5 times moving here between now and 2030, and it's just fantastic. When you talk about population growth, you can't ignore, and I know the Merrill Lynch folks, they love to hear this, you can't ignore the wealth in migration. Florida has led the country by far in wealth in migration. Since the pandemic, $39 billion of wealth has moved to Florida. And in Broward County specifically, we are getting $1.7 billion of wealth every year since the pandemic. I mean, think about that. That's $192,000 a minute or something like that, or an hour, excuse me. And I mean, the wealth just keeps coming here. If we're number 6 in the state in terms of wealth growth. And the population growth over the next, until 2030, is going to occur and 52% of it's going to occur in 5 counties. And one of those counties is Broward County. You just look at the household income that's moving here. Like our household income in Broward County, our median household income is about $88,000. The average household income of folks moving here, primarily from New York and Chicago, is $123,000. So we're really doing well with population growth and wealth and migration, and it makes up for some of the vulnerabilities that we have locally that I'll talk about in a minute. This is a picture from Heiko Dobekrow. Heiko is involved in CareerSource Broward. This was from the recent job fair, and I put this picture up because it's important that we have leaders on the ground trying to promote and support more job opportunities, and create more employees by training, by lowering the hurdles to get folks back in the workforce. This particular job fair had 1,500 employees show up, 100 employers show up. John Knox Village said they took 70 applications to fill 70 positions. So kudos to Heiko. Let's give Heiko a big hand for this job fair this year. It's fantastic. It's really important. We have a lot of good things in this county, but 2 things that we really need to work on. One is creating more employees and finding more workforce, and 2 is finding a place for them to live that's affordable. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So we gained about 41,000 jobs last year, down a little bit. We had gained 48,000 last year. We lost a few in the construction industry. I'll get to that in just a second. But overall, unemployment is pretty good. We're about just below the state at 3%. National is 3.7. California and New York for 4.5 and 5.1. So we're doing pretty good in this regard. We have 32,403 unemployed workers. We have about 34,000 job openings. So we've got a surplus of 2,000 job openings. Heiko tells me half of these unemployed folks are disabled, so we're working on ways to get them back into the workforce, and I applaud him for that. Job growth year over year, I did mention that we grew 41,000 jobs, and you can see on the screen that the industries that grew. Our construction industry lost a couple hundred jobs. That's expected, and we'll talk about that when we get to real estate. Usually we have 3 tables of construction industry back here, and they're not here this year, so hopefully they'll be back next year. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you, Broward County has created 1 out of every 7 jobs in the state last year. So that's pretty amazing, and I'm really proud of that. We're doing a really good job. But having said that, I talked about some of our vulnerabilities, and one of them is job shortages. And really, we have a big problem in the healthcare industry. We need registered nurses. We need healthcare workers. We need retail sales folks. We need IT people. And we don't have them right now, and so we are all hands on deck trying to train and to lean into that problem. And then on the other side of that is, once we do find them and once we train them, we're going to have to find an affordable place to live. So we're all working on that. All the stakeholders are at the table. Healthcare industry, education industry, our local government, school board are all at the table trying to get this problem solved. Small business confidence. Small business is a big part of the economy. Our organization, we have small businesses and big businesses, but small business employs more folks than any other industry or part of the economy, in the economy. You look at this picture here. This is, I know Ted Drum's here today. Ted, this is 15th Street Fisheries, one of our iconic local restaurants. And in front of it is, you'll see the water taxi. Bill Walker, the president of Water Taxi, is here today. Hey, Bill, raise your hand, give him a hand. I think water taxi is one of our most amazing assets. It gets folks out on the water. And, Bill, you know this, one of my dream retirement jobs is to be a tour boat guide for the water taxi. So I'm hoping today when I drop some of this economic local information on you, you'll be impressed and maybe give me a shot when I retire someday. And that would be fun. So small business is a bit mixed. Here locally, I think we're good. Broward County, South Florida, is an economic outlier. You read some of the things that in the journal, or you listen to things on the news, and a lot of those reports are agnostic to location. And Broward County is an outlier and doing better than the balance of the economy. Still, as I gauge the temperature of small business in our community, it's a bit mixed. You see that top line there that says optimism is up slightly, and it's slightly misleading. President Trump was elected in 2016. Small business confidence shot through the roof and remained there for about 3 years until March of 2020, when it dropped, when COVID hit. And for the last 24 months, small business confidence has been below the 50-year average, and that's the first time that's ever happened. So I think the main thing that small business is worried about are, we talk about factors that are outside Broward County, is inflation, 20% over the last 3 years. South Florida in the state has the highest inflation rate year over year. In Florida, I think we're 7.4%. So at some point, it just starts to wear on your local economy, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Consumer spending, I'm seeing some cracks in the dam. I know the wealthy are out there having a pretty good time, but the bottom 50% right now, there's some pretty disturbing signs. If you look through the list, you see credit card balances are up 10%, and they're up 40% since March of 21. So, they've gone up quite a bit. Black Friday sales were muted, not bad, 6% increase year over year. Personal savings rate at 4% by itself doesn't seem too bad, but when you consider that the savings rate was 32% in April of 2020, you can see that consumers have worked their way through their savings. Their credit card balances are higher. Retail sales are a little bit higher year over year. It's understandable. Everything costs more. Even if we bought the same things year over year, it just costs that much more. Retail occupancy, and we'll talk about that when we get to real estate, still doing really good. In fact, retail is the darling of the real estate world right now. Bill Rotella and his team can tell you better than anybody. They're one of the top retail brokerage firms in the United States here in our organization. We're lucky to have them. Subprime auto delinquencies, look at that, up 6.1%. And then the bottom one is particularly disturbing. Credit card delinquencies are up 43%. That's the highest level since 1999. So I just feel like there's some cracks in the dam, and you see it out there in the local community. The bottom 50% are struggling. It's hard out there. It's hard to make a living and live in this county. And so I talked to Howard Dvorkian, and many of you may know him. He runs credit.com. And what his company does is credit counseling. They have 700 credit counselors that help folks that are having a problem with their credit. They're behind in their payments, behind in their car loans. And he told me a few weeks ago that he's never been busier. So you think about that, a firm with 700 credit counselors that's been in business a long time, through many cycles, tells me right now that he's never been busier. So I just think that's something that we need to keep an eye on locally, that the bottom half is really tapped out. And that really is a perfect segue. Let me go back just a quick second. I talked about Lisa putting pictures that mean something, or that maybe give us a hint. And I'm looking at this Louis Vuitton sign here. And it is the day before Valentine's Day. So ladies, you're welcome. Guys, I'm sorry. She runs the slide deck. So anyway, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, just a public service announcement. Okay, housing affordability. This is my baby. About 3 years ago, I was asked to come to the Broward workshop and sort of address this issue that was bubbling up. And everybody felt like, we had a lot of good things going on in Broward County, but one of the problems that we had from a business standpoint and a social standpoint was, where is everybody going to live? It's just too expensive. You look at the median price of our home in Broward County, went up 7.5% after years of increases. It's now $570,000. That's for a house. I think I mentioned this to you last year, and many of you know, only 6% of our workforce can afford that house. 6% of our workforce can afford a median priced home in this county. That's not right. That's something we got to do something about. Rent increase, just a little bit this year, a couple percent, but that's on the heels of close to 39 to 40% of rent increases the last 3 years. It's been good times for landlords, but it's muted a little bit this year. We have more supply So we're going to have a little bit of a less of a rent increase this year. That's a little bit of relief. But Ned Murray just did an affordable housing needs assessment, and we'll be presenting that 10-year master plan to the county commission, Lamar and his fellow commissioners on February 20th. And in that, it provides solutions, and I'll get to that in a second. But 177,000 severely cost-burdened households in this county. Those are households. And those are people that pay, or families that pay over 50% of their monthly income for housing. It doesn't make them very good consumers. They don't have any money left at the end of the month. About 75% of them are renters, 25% are homeowners. And so it's something we got to do, we've got to address. And collectively, all of us in the community, like I mentioned, the stakeholders, Broward College, Broward Health, NSU, and Terry and his team is here from NSU, and they do a great job. We're all at the table trying to figure this out. And so we commissioned a 10-year master plan, affordable needs assessment by Ned Murray at FIU. That's been going on the last year. It's finally completed. We're going to be presenting it to the county commission on February 20th. It includes recommendations on funding. It includes recommendations on densification and on land use policy that we need in this county to continue to grow. We're out of land, so we have to go vertical, and we have to repurpose some of these old shopping centers and some of these old office buildings into higher and better uses. We need to get our workers close to transportation corridors. So all of those recommendations are in this master plan, and so that's something we hope that the county commission will look favorably on February 20th, so we can continue to take a bite of this apple. Dennis mentioned the county investing $100 million. We was just a little bit behind, and that was my fault. That's an old bio. Our county commission, the last 3 years has invested $123 million into affordable housing, gap financing, direct investment. And I say investment because it is an investment. Not only is it an investment in our long-term economic sustainability, but it's an investment in our community. That same community that has households that are severely cost-burdened, that spend over 50% of their income, imagine that same community spending only 30% of their income. They're better consumers. They're better local consumers. They're better for the community. So we are addressing it. Everybody's at the table, and that's something that, along with labor, are two of our biggest issues here that we are going to have to address, or we're not going to go anywhere. All right, let's talk about our drivers. Real estate and tourism and hospitality and marine industry, they're sort of our legacy industries here in Broward County and Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale is the yachting capital of the world. And then 3 of our engines, Port Everglades, Fort Lauderdale International Airport, and our new engine, downtown Fort Lauderdale. When I tell you some of the stats on downtown Fort Lauderdale, it's going to blow your mind. And I can't wait to get to that. First, we're going to touch on real estate, and just from an overarching level, real estate, again, like I said, Broward County, South Florida, we're a bit of an outlier. We're better than the rest of the country. We're just in a better position where there's more population growth, there's more wealth and migration. That said, it's a very sluggish market right now. The transactions are way off. Interest rates have finally just weighed down too many deals. Inflation is also weighed down deals. Costs, construction costs. And for the last year and a half or so, to be honest, largely banks have been out of the market. They have not been lending. Ginger Martin and Pam Dalton at American National Bank are putting money out. Some of our other local banks are putting money out, but the larger banks are just not putting money out right now, and it's sort of clogged it up. There's still capital out there, but there's not bank capital. So just real quickly with that as a backdrop, industrial, still doing very good in Broward County. If you own industrial property or land, you're doing very well, and you're going to continue to do well. We are built out. You cannot go vertical with industrial, so it's very valuable. Right now, probably $2.5 million an acre in Broward County. I don't want to see any subpoenas, lawyers. No subpoenas. I'm not quoting that. That's not my opinion, but that's what I'm seeing out there. Also, multifamily still doing very good. Still doing very good. If you're an investor in multifamily, you're still doing okay. There are some transactions, but not a lot. Hotel, we're going to talk about hospitality in a minute when we talk about some of our key industries. Still doing very well. There are hotels in the pipeline. I'm excited about our convention center hotel, which I'll talk about in a minute. Retail is the darling. Retail is the new darling. Everybody saw how retail survived and thrived and came out of the pandemic. And if you have a grocery-anchored retail center or a service-oriented retail center, you're doing very well. Bill Rotella will tell you that. That said, their transactions are also way off. Finally, office. Office, I think, is where you're going to see some distress this year. The work from home trends have stuck. Downtown Fort Lauderdale right now, our physical occupancy is 55, 60%, which doesn't sound great, but it's nation leading. It's down to 35 or 40% in some of these other urban centers. Your best buildings, your Class A, the main styles of course is in our organization. Greg Kimmelman is here. Their building is full at the highest rents in the market. Downtown Miami at Brickell, 830 Brickell, their pro forma rents were $80 a square foot net. Their last 4 or 5 leases they did in that building, excuse me, were $130 net. So they're one of the best office markets in the world. We have, Palm Beach County, Steve, forgot his name, but he's doing related. What's his name? Somebody. Ross. Thanks. I think I'm having a memory lapse, and I don't know if I can stand trial. No, I'm just kidding. But Stephen Ross from New York is doing 5 office towers in Miami. It's basically Hudson Yards South. In West Palm Beach. So office in general, the best office is okay, but you're going to see some distress in B and C offices. Folks that are in a loan at 3 or 4% have to come out on a refinance at 7 or 8% if you can even get a loan. And so it's a dirty word right now, and it's going to be challenging this year for office. I guess the general mantra in office is survive until 25. Okay, let's talk about something better, something cheerier. Tourism industry, it's an absolute beast. Employs 100,000 people, roughly 10% of our workforce. Tourists last year in Broward County spent $18.4 billion. So we talk about our bottom 50% being a little bit tapped out. We're lucky here in Broward. We have tourists, a lot of tourists coming here, spending $18 billion. That kind of softens the blow a little bit. You look over the next, 3 years or so, we have 20 hotels in the pipeline. And one of the best and biggest hotels is the one you see in the picture here. That's the Broward County Convention Center Hotel. It's an Omni hotel, 29 stories, 800 units, or 800 rooms. I live over in that area in Rio Vista, and I drive by there, and it's changed the character of that whole area. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable. And the convention center piece, I'd like to give a lot of credit to Stacy Ritter and Visit for Lauderdale. They're doing a fantastic job. In 21 and 22, especially in 21, we had the whole game to ourselves. There were very few places in the world to go. Florida was open. South Florida was looking good. We have beautiful beaches. And so we did really well in 21 and 22. 23, everything's open. International flights are open. A little more competitive. So we're holding our own. But and I think we'll continue to do that in 24. But by and large, that growth is slowing. We had a really good time in 21 and 22. And so we're going to continue on competing. And we're taking steps to compete with things like the Convention Center Hotel. Marine industry, as you guys know, one of my favorite. I served on that board for 2 terms, and as the mayor of Dania Beach, we were a very marine-centric city at the time, and the marine industry is just an absolute beast. It employs 120,000 people at 25% greater than the state average in terms of wages. We like to measure the success of the marine industry with the boat show. The boat show this year had 100,000 attendees. Usually it has about 100 to 105,000. A little more negotiating this year than maybe 21 or 22. Marine Max, a publicly traded marine company, in 2019, they sold 179 units. This year, they sold 220 units. They made over $100 million greater than they did in 2019. So there's still life out there. But one of the exciting things I want to mention is what you see underneath it, the blue economy. The blue economy talks a lot about and really deals with the scientific research that's being done in the ocean. I mean, we have the 3rd largest coral reef in the world. We have more coastline than any state other than Alaska. We have 60% more coastline than California. So our 6 universities have been doing amazing scientific research on coral reef reclamation and just other ways to embrace the energy of the ocean. And I learned about it when I was down in Dania in 2009, and I got to meet all those scientists and all the work they're doing. So collectively, our economic associations from the 3 counties, the marine industry associations from the 3 counties, and the universities have got together and branded ourselves as the Marine Research Hub. And what that does is it tries to connect the research to the philanthropy. Every year at the boat show, when billionaires come down, we connect the research with the money. The goal is to get that invested into our long-term economic sustainability by investing in the blue economy. It's something that we're very, very passionate about. Rob Cornaren's in our organization, and along with folks like Ron Bergeron and Guy Harvey are passionate about it, and I think in 10 years from now, if we lean into this, we're going to be known as sort of the Research Triangle or Silicon Valley, but it's going to be South Florida. Port Everglades, unbelievable, doing a great job. They employ 9,500 people at Port Everglades, 215,000 people throughout the state. Just a really, really good port. You can see some of the numbers. Operating revenues are up this year. Passenger travel is up. We expect passenger travel to increase to $3.7 million next year. That's about people. It's about 70,000 people a week rolling in and out of Port Everglades. I mean, it's just amazing what we have here. They're investing in infrastructure. They've got $2 billion in capital projects that they're doing, the turning notch and some other post-Panamax improvements. And the Disney ship, the first Disney ship is in the port. It's been unbelievable. It's really successful. The second Disney ship is scheduled for 2025. The picture you see here is a groundbreaking for Terminal 5 at the Fort Lauderdale International Airport. You can see we're the 17th busiest airport in the country. Terminal 5 is going to be about 230,000 square feet, $400 million project, should be ready in 2026. The airport's really on fire. Airport employs 16,000 people, 255,000 people statewide, and we do it all from 3,100 acres. What's 3,100 acres, Walter? Denver is 30,000 acres. Orlando's 12,000 acres, and we get this done on 3,100 acres. So you can see the passenger travel is up. We project about another 1 million passengers next year, so we're going to continue to grow. Our high-level year was 2019. We had 36.7 million passengers, so we're on our way back. This is downtown Fort Lauderdale, in the immediate downtown. Downtown Fort Lauderdale is an area of 2.2 square miles. And the DDA, under the leadership of Jenny Motorhone, commissioned an economic impact study a few years ago, or last year, which showed that the downtown Fort Lauderdale CBD, Central Business District, produces an annual economic output of $35.7 billion. So that puts it right there at the airport and the seaport. 33 for the seaport, 37 for the airport, 35 right in the middle. It's unbelievable. 26,000 people live downtown. You know, since 2010, and Marty, you can appreciate this, Marty Kier, since 2010, the downtown Fort Lauderdale has paid $1 billion in taxes. It's really unbelievable. We are one of the top 18-hour cities in the country, along with Austin, Denver, Charlotte. And of those three, we're the only one of those markets that did not have a decline in office vacancy, our occupancy during the last 3 years. So it's doing a really good job. And this doesn't happen by accident. This happens by nurturing and attention and initiative and work, and Jenny and her team at the DDA have done a great job at that. So that is new on my list of economic engines, and I think it deserves a place there. So in closing, I'm going to start with my fearless forecast. Even with the macro headwinds, which we talked about out there, and David's going to touch on those, and it's going to be scary. There's a lot going on out there. South Florida economy, broad economy, is going to continue to move forward despite the lack of consumer spending, because we have so many external sources. The Great Migration, population growth, going to continue. We expect 257,000 people to move here between now and 2030. Housing market's going to be a bit muted this year. Interest rates are a problem. We just don't have supply. Homes are on the market longer. Prices are high. But if you own a home and you don't have a mortgage, you're sitting pretty. Labor issue, like I mentioned, big problem. We've got to find more labor. And then we've got to find a place for them to live. Tourism is, as I mentioned, growing. We have hotels on the pipeline. We are competing with other markets now, but we're doing a really good job. Our convention center opens up. Our hotel opens up next year, so that's going to be a big feather in our cap. Commercial real estate is going to outpace the rest of the state and the country, but office is going to be in a big reset this year. But in general, the mantra is survive till 25. So other than black swans that are out there in the world, various wars and Fed monetary policy and other things like that, and David's going to break that down for us, I think we're in for another pretty good year. So I really appreciate you having me today. Thank you for your time and consideration.